morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zanu PF is not a democratic party. It is shocking how people like Christopher Mutsvangwa want to rewrite history and try to give the impression that Zanu PF is a democratic party, an exemplary democratic party in the region even. That is just nonsense. Let's hear him talk to on HSTV on that subject. I'll just play about 2 minutes of that video clip.
But the party is a private citizen. It's not a governmental entity. The governance of the party is done, of the country, is done through the elected representatives, which are fielded by Zanu PF, including its president, to compete against any other political parties or formations which may want to be the leaders of Zimbabwe. That's a general election. And when a general election is done and a party wins, then it gets the right to govern that country. And we are happy to say that Zanu PF has consistently been winning these elections in a democratic dispensation, which it started right from the formation of the Zimbabwe state. Unlike other revolutionary movements from other regions in the past, Zanu PF decided that although it had won the liberation war militarily, or was on the verge of winning it militarily, it needed the baptism of the people of Zimbabwe through a vote to become the governing party of Zimbabwe. And that's exactly what we did in 1980. We went through an election which essentially endorsed our victorious ethos from the liberation war. But we have been faithful to that tradition of having elections. We are not a revolutionary party which says from bullet to office. We are a revolutionary party which created new grounds unprecedented in global affairs to say a revolutionary national liberation movement which is on the verge of victory accepts to be adjudicated by the electorate of that particular, the population of that country, to become the rulers. It's a tradition which Southern Africa since adopted, but the pallbearer, the pioneer to that tradition is Zanu PF. So it is very important that we have this annual People's Conference every year, because it gives a chance for the membership of the party to question what has been going on in that particular year as we strive to fulfill our compact, our covenant with the people of Zimbabwe. And the president will be there to give the worksheet of what the government has been doing, a government which was delegated by Zanu PF to rule on its behalf. So the government rules on behalf of Zanu PF because we have to satisfy the electoral aspects of our constitution. Zanu PF does not directly run the government. But we need to supervise this work of the ministers. We need to supervise the work of the president. We need to supervise the work of the government agencies delegated by the constitution to fulfill the wishes of Zimbabwe. And what are the wishes? The wishes of Zimbabweans are to get a better life. They sacrificed all they did in the National Liberation War because there was the prospect of a better life. It was collective sacrifice by individuals for the prospect of a better life. Zanu PF takes seriously its assignment to the people of Zimbabwe, because if it doesn't fulfill that prospect of a better life, it will be voted out of power. That's why Zanu PF is so particular. That's why these meetings, the annual People's Conference, are very important, because we need to take stock. Otherwise, we suffer the fate of other liberation movements which may have been challenged severely to be almost driven out of power, a fate which we also have faced in the past when we had challenges because the electorate felt otherwise about us. So this...
I'll stop it there. This is somebody trying to rewrite history. Zanu PF has never held free, fair, and credible elections. From the word go, what is he talking about? The Lancaster House Conference agreement clearly stated that during the campaign period to lead up to the 1980 elections, ZAPU, PF ZAPU, and Zanu PF will withdraw all their freedom fighters, operatives, from the field to designated assembly points so that the campaign can be carried out with no freedom fighters in the field. That was agreed. By the time Zanu PF returned back to Zimbabwe, they changed. Zanu PF did not withdraw all its freedom fighters from the field. Many of them were left in the field. And they were left with instructions to tell the electorate that if Zanu PF does not win the elections, the Bush war would continue. He is right. Zanu PF had the military manpower and the weapons, and it was winning the liberation war. There's no doubt about it. They were the stronger army in the field. And of course, the people knew that if Zanu PF was to lose and decides the Bush war would continue, who was there to stop them? No one. And so the people voted to end the Bush war. They may have stopped the Bush war, but they didn't stop the war. Because 3 years after the independence, Zanu PF launched the now infamous Wundi. The primary purpose of Wundi was to force the only other serious opposition party in the country to challenge Zanu PF, i.e. PF ZAPU, to give up its existence as a separate entity and join up with Zanu PF, which they eventually did in 1987, clearing the way for Mugabe to impose the de facto one-party state. Let's get the history right. You cannot keep on rewriting history to suit yourself. And to say that Zanu PF is the exemplary democratic party is nonsense. Mutsvangwa referred to a time when they nearly lost the elections. He is referring to the 2008 elections. Let's hear an account of what happened in 2008 from Dr. Ibo Mandaza.
I also know that Mugabe conceded defeat in 2008. He phoned Mbeki and Obasanjo to concede defeat. I hope that Thabo Mbeki and Obasanjo will one day make that public. But one of them, I won't say which one, told me that Mugabe phoned them that Saturday night and said, look, I lost the election and I concede defeat. And I know that Mugabe stuck to his guns, was prepared to go. His wife was since bags packed to go somewhere on the following day when Mnangagwa and Chiwenga approached him and said, you stay where you are. and then they contrived the runoff, sadly with the help of South Africa. And runoff took place, very violent. 360 people were killed. The South African, I came here as part of a delegation to Cape Town to see members of the ANC. I don't want to mention names, they're my friends. I saw them, and through them, a cabinet committee subcommittee of South African cabinet was set up on the Zimbabwe issue. It was on the basis of that cabinet committee that South Africa did not recognize the runoff. And indeed, it was the basis of that committee that Thabo sent the generals to South Africa, to Zimbabwe. I met them, and I was one of the few to have read the report, because I was flying to Joburg in the company of General Romano, who was a friend. He passed away, no? So, yeah. And I also took people who had lost their hands in the violence to the South African embassy in Harare. And Romano broke down in tears. How can a liberation movement treat these people like that? He was a broken man. So there's no doubt at all.
This is the same party that claims that it is the living example of a democratic party. It's ridiculous. As much as Dr. Ibo Mandaza said that Mugabe was prepared to go in 2008, once he was persuaded to stay, he played his part and he made it abundantly clear that Zanu PF was a party of violence. This is what Mugabe himself said during the runoff campaign.
Kana ini ndakatakaisa bhairo panapa ndinochikanda pasi ndoti vakomana kwatakabva.
Zanu PF has always believed that they have the divine right to rule the country. And the 2008 elections showed that in abundance. It is a pity that the opportunity to dismantle the Zanu PF dictatorship during the GNU was lost. As Dr. Ibo Mandaza explained there, South Africa refused to recognize Zanu PF's victory and forced the regime to go into the GNU. The primary purpose of the GNU was to implement the democratic reforms which would have stopped the blatant cheating that took place after the March elections and the wanton violence during the runoff. Unfortunately, Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC friends turned out to be corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless, because Mugabe was able to bribe them with the trappings of high office the E-Class Mercedes-Benz for all the deputy ministers, all the ministers, all the two deputy prime ministers, and Morgan Tsvangirai himself, the Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai, plus a generous salary and allowances all round, etc., etc. And in return, the MDC leaders decided they were not going to rock the boat. They did not implement even one token reform. So the opportunity was lost. And so we found ourselves, end of the GNU, with still Zanu PF carte blanche dictatorial powers in place. And so they were able to pick up and carry on from where they left off. Just a few years down the line, we had the coup. This was a Zanu PF thing, part of the internal fighting within Zanu PF, factional fighting within Zanu PF, leading up to the military coup. And yet here is somebody who still insists that Zanu PF is a democratic party. As much as VP Chiwenga tried to pretend that he was fighting for the Constitution, he was lying. He knows he was lying. Because as much as Justice George Chiweshe said that the coup was justified, legal, and constitutional, even he could not quote what part, which chapter and verse in the Constitution said there could be a military coup. Because there isn't. He was just lying. The truth of the matter is, this is a party of thugs who believe they have the divine right to rule. And when one faction started fighting the other, one of them lost. In this case, the G40 lost. And the incoming Lacoste faction promised that they would hold free, fair, and credible elections. They did not. 2018 elections were rigged. 2023 elections were rigged. Here is Mnangagwa boasting that he doesn't care, the fact that SADC, the AU, and all the other respectable election observers to the 2023 elections condemned that process as flawed and illegal.
Vana vakatuka Zanu PF kana ini ndonyanyisa kufara kuita zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vako vachikurumbidza unenge uchikanganisa. Ukavona vachiti Zanu PF yakaipa, farai. You are doing correct things for your country. Homu takaita maelections edu kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelections arafamba zvakanaka ndezvavo.
The truth of the matter is, SADC and the AU condemned those elections as flawed and illegal. And now we have got the unfortunate reality of having an illegitimate regime trying to extend stay in power by hook or by crook. And they send their chief propagandist to tell us that Zanu PF is a democratic party. This is absolute utter nonsense. People like Mutsvangwa should know that they cannot rewrite historic facts. One of the sad realities of Zimbabwe is that Zanu PF has never had any problems recruiting these outwardly very intelligent individuals like Christopher Mutsvangwa, Professor Jonathan Moyo, and others to work in the party's propaganda department. And their primary purpose has been to misinform and to brainwash the people of Zimbabwe. The ancient Greeks were right. Democracy as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, only works if the people are educated, knowledgeable, objective, and diligent in carrying out their secret duty of holding those in public office to account. Our propagandists, Christopher Mutsvangwa and company, instead of educating the people, they've been misinforming them at best, brainwashing them at most. The very opposite of what the people should be. They should be educated so that they're knowledgeable, so that they can hold the leaders to account. And of course, the primary purpose for it was to brainwash the people so that they're not able to hold Zanu PF leaders to account. So we have found ourselves in this tragic situation where we've got a failed state, and yet we've got people like Mutsvangwa pretending that we are a successful state. We are a democratic nation. One of the tenets of a healthy and functioning democracy is that the people should have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. Zanu PF has rigged elections. The people of Zimbabwe have never, I repeat, they have never, ever exercised, enjoyed the benefits of a free, fair, and credible election. And now, our friend is trying to promote that it is the democratic wish of the people of Zimbabwe that Mnangagwa should stay on. Where would the people give up their right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country? In this case here, the only right, diluted as it is, that they have. All the other rights have been taken away by Zanu PF. All the other freedoms have been taken away by Zanu PF. The tragedy with people like Mutsvangwa is that they not only have a nibble mind, but worst of all, Zanu PF, the likes of Mnangagwa and Mugabe before him, has always recruited these propagandists because they also have got a knack. They will sell their own mother for a price and be proud that they had a mother to sell. This is one of the tragedies of Zimbabwe. We want an educated people to play their meaningful role in a democracy. And then we have got these individuals prepared to brainwash the people and try to misrepresent historic facts and pretend that Zimbabwe is a democracy. At least the one thing our friends should know is that not even you, Christopher Mutsvangwa, can rewrite historic facts. I repeat, the Zanu PF is not a democratic party. It never was. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.